Hi and welcome to another episode of Delaware County Political News, Meet the Expert. I am your host, Larry DeMarco, and today we are here with Jonathan Seidel, the former controller of the city of Philadelphia. John has had a long and distinguished career in Pennsylvania politics, as well as being an attorney, accountant, and author. He served as the Philadelphia City Controller for 4 consecutive terms, each time being reelected by a wide margin and enacting financial reforms that have served taxpayers upwards of $500 million. Later in 2010, he campaigned for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, where he was runner-up only by a few thousand votes out of almost a million cast. A lifelong resident of Northeast Philadelphia, John's tireless dedication to fiscal discipline reduced the city's tax burden and spurred economic development. John also pushed for important business tax incentives and expanded minority and small business lending, all of which have revitalized the city, helping it prosper and come back from the brink of bankruptcy in the early 90s and become one of the most vibrant cities on the East Coast. John's book, Philadelphia, A New Urban Direction, is widely considered an essential guide for effective government and corporate governance and is required reading at many colleges and universities. John, thank you for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
John, the residents of Delaware County saw you on the campaign trail for your wife, Judge Maria McLaughlin. Congratulations on her election for Superior Court.
Oh, no, it was great. She did very well in Delaware County. She was probably the best candidate I've ever seen. And she spent 20 years in the DA's office and 6 years as a Court of Common Pleas judge. And now she's ascended to Superior Court, which is a statewide court. And I couldn't be happier for her and my family and the people of the Commonwealth. It's just great. And the response from Delaware County was overwhelming, and it was just an honor to be out there stomping for in Delaware County.
You both were everywhere. Are you still exhausted?
I've been exhausted my entire life, but you know what? As you know, the key is that you can make a material difference in people's lives when you're in politics, and for those of us, the very few that have that honor, you just can't leave it. You got to make sure that you continue it every day, and I enjoy it just the same way you do, Larry.
John, just looking at your resume, you certainly have been a dedicated public servant, as has your wife, and we thank you both for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
John, President Trump promised a middle-class tax cut, but it seems like it was more a tax cut for the wealthy. And then the CEO of Apple announced that he's going to reinvest $350 billion into the economy. Is this something that is really going to happen? Is it really going to be a middle-class tax cut, contrary to what we've been told by the pundits?
You know, I don't think so. When you look at the economic makeup and the people of Delaware County, most own their own homes. They pay Pennsylvania income tax, they pay real estate taxes, they pay a variety of taxes locally. Under this new tax plan, most of those expenses that we have in some of the older states, like Pennsylvania, are not going to be able to be deductible. Trump took away exemptions. So if you're a family with a lot of young children, you're not going to have those dependencies taken off. So he's increased standard deduction. You know, the thing with taxes is that they are done to collect revenue and also change people's behavior patterns. The problem I have with the tax bill when it comes to the people of Delaware County, I think it will affect them in an adverse way. As to Apple, who knows what any of these guys are going to do. They've got all that money sitting overseas, and he's allowing them to bring the money in. I think there's going to be a real hole in the deficit based upon this tax bill, and the people that are going to have to pay for it are our children and our grandchildren. That's not the way it should be.
Can you clarify that a little bit? What negative ramifications will this tax cut have on the middle class and the lower middle class?
What I'm concerned about is that people in the lower middle class won't be able to get insurance. They won't be able to pay the real estate taxes. They won't get any benefit of the tax burden that they have locally, which they're under the current law is allowed to be deducted on their federal return. Come this year in 2018 and forward, you're not going to be able to deduct that. He limits the amount of medical expenses. You don't have exemptions for children. So the fact that I don't have any more children that are under 24 years of age, it doesn't affect me. But when I had 4 children, when I was younger, married and raising a family, I got about $6,000 or $7,000 of deductions. Those don't exist anymore. So when he talks about middle class, in many cases, a lot of the middle class are aspiring young people or people that have children that are under the age of 24. None of those are going to be deductible, and I think it's going to have a negative effect. We need to give people an incentive to take care of their children, an incentive to pay the local taxes, an incentive to pay money for charities, for churches and synagogues. All of that is not going to be deductible starting this year, and I think that's a real problem as we move forward.
John, I'm really confused. I just discussed with my accountant that the standard deduction, that the dependency deduction was being doubled in 2018. You're confusing me. What gives?
Well, the standard deduction is being doubled. So it used to be $12,000, now it'll be $24,000. I think what the Trump administration is trying to do is not allow you to take any expenses and to almost flatline the tax bill for everyone. Now, the problem with that is that if you're worth $1 million, you have money to take care of your children anyway. If you're only making $15,000, every child that you have, you should be able to take off that dependency. Neither of you are going to be allowed to do that from 2018 on. So if you look at my family, which I had 6 children, you used to be able to have that shield because it cost you money to have a child, and the government used to believe that you would give us a basic amount of a deduction for every child you have as being a married person. Today, from 2018 on, it's not going to happen. It did increase the standard deduction, but they did that. Then they took away your medical. They took away the ability to take off real estate taxes. They took off the ability to take state and local taxes, which is, wage tax and personal income tax and things like that. So, on one hand, they looked like they gave you something. On the other hand, they took things away. And I think the people that are greatly affected by this are the extremely wealthy and the intergovernmental and inter-country type of multi-level corporations that are going to benefit from it.
One argument that the Republican Party always makes is that the fact that if they give a huge tax break to corporate America, right, that there's going to be this trickle-down effect. Corporations are going to have a lot more money to spend, and they're going to come back into the country. Do you believe that?
It's such a simplistic way of looking at taxes. It's such a simplistic way of looking at the government. That might have a possibility of working if we had a closed economic system, but we are so affected by the world. We're affected by China. We're affected by all these large economies. So there's no real trickle-down effect unless you say, I'm going to give you a large corporation a tax break, but I'm going to mandate that you must spend that whatever money that you save on taxes to increase hiring or expand your plant. We never mandate. We assume that somebody's going to take this money as a large multi-level corporation and to the goodness of their heart that they're going to plow that money back into our economy. Why should they do that when they can go to Mexico, Canada? They can go all over the world. They don't have to necessarily make anything in the United States. And so the trickle-down effect started with Reagan. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now.
All right, so you say it didn't work then, and there's argument about that. What is your take on why it didn't work then? What do the statistics show?
What I would rather have seen is targeted deductions, targeted expansion, and give people in Delaware County, set up tax-free zones and say, open up a business here and I want you to hire people to live within 15 miles and I'll give you all kinds of tax breaks. I think you've got to give companies a much more specific type of reason to expand the economy in a place like Pennsylvania than just say, I'm going to cut your corporate taxes from 30% down to 21%.
And then pray.
And pray. Please, God, please use the money and save my family. They're not going to think that way. They've got factories all over the world. Why would they go, my God, let me open up in Delaware County? But if you can be specific and target, I think that's a much better way of doing things.
Which they chose not to do.
Which they chose not to do, that's correct.
What long-term ramifications will this tax bill have on the middle class and lower class on such issues such programs such as Medicaid, Medicare, and other social programs?
You know, all those programs began primarily under presidents in the 1960s with Lyndon Johnson and John F. Kennedy and
Nixon, right?
And it was expanded in Nixon. People don't realize Nixon expanded. He expanded third-party payments. He expanded the ability for a dependent child to get Social Security. I mean, these are not just Republican and Democrat issues. They're social issues of a nation that has grown in its responsibility to its citizens. I think that they're going to move on and try to cut all these types of programs, and because that's not their key voter. While they say they're going to help you, they're not going to help you. And their trickle-down economics doesn't work. It sounds good. It's a good 30-second soundbite. But I don't think in the end it does anything. The other reality is the Republican Party today, the Republican Party of yesterday used to talk about reducing the deficit. The Republican Party today doesn't even talk about the deficit. And this new tax bill is going to bring in less money because of the corporate deductions, and it's going to increase the deficit. Now, they say that in 10 years, the economy is going to turn around. You know, it's like praying for, help tomorrow when you're starving today. I'd rather take care of today, and then tomorrow will take care of itself. And that's not the way they look at it.
So if the economy doesn't expand, what is necessarily going to happen for these programs?
I think there's going to be a real price to pay. What I'm afraid of is they're making everything out look rosy today. And then when the real numbers come in as we move forward and they see that there's been a dramatic reduction of revenue that the government's getting and that they want to start cutting third-party payments, you're going to have longer lines in emergency rooms because people don't have insurance. You're going to find seniors are going to be jeopardized because they depend upon all these types of programs. You're going to see dependent children that have lost their parents, one or two parents, under Social Security, not having any money. You're going to see the fabric of who we are as a caring people, I think, be destroyed. And that's really what makes us a great country, is that we don't leave anybody behind. So
where you couldn't pass cuts politically, you indirectly pass them through a tax bill.
That's right. What you end up doing is that, you don't want to say you're going to cut things, but if you don't fund things, you don't fund an item, you effectively have cut it. And people don't read into the weeds, so they don't really know that that's going to happen. Now, the problem is if the deficit expands, there's no money coming in, and there's a third-party problem as far as Medicare and Medicaid, we're going to have to face that piper soon enough.
As controller, city controller for 4 terms, you have some experience with what Joanne Phillips has ahead for her. What does she have ahead as the new controller of Delaware County?
I think she's great. I met with her during the campaign to explain the controller's office and talk about it. I was honored that my wife, Judge McLaughlin, had the privilege of swearing her in at the swearing-in program in Delaware County. I think, for me, the controller's office is the most bipartisan. I mean, 1 and 1 equals 2. My father used to say, 1 and 1 equals 2. The only way to get to 3 is to get another 1. I mean, that's the reality of the world. I don't think the controller's office has been used properly in the past because of the dominant one-party system that used to exist in Delaware County. I think having a Democrat in there with somebody that's willing to work with people, when she begins to do investigations and audits, I think you're going to find a lot of waste that has existed and built up in Delaware County government, and she can be part of being a real truth teller and coming out with audits that will recommend ways to save money for the people of Delaware County.
But John, isn't this somewhat unfair? Because you were a very successful, effective controller in the city of Philadelphia, a dominant one-party system.
That's right.
So couldn't there have been a fiscal, responsible, one-party system in Delaware County?
I think you're right. There could have been, if people actually accepted that. If you had people that became the county controller or were involved in the civic responsibilities, not just in politics. The problem in Delaware County is that did not happen. There wasn't an institutionalized acceptance of responsibility that even though you had a one-party system, that each had to do their job. I think they all worked for their own common good rather than working for the common good of the county government as well as the people of Delaware County.
Detractors will say that is the city of Philadelphia a system where you have everybody working for the common good? For instance, the drop system and the waste that you have in Philadelphia government. I understand that you have been praised for the work that you did.
Right.
But if from an outsider, even someone in Delaware County, looking at the city of Philadelphia, can't outsiders point to the city of Philadelphia and look at a system of waste in City Hall?
Well, I think there's waste everywhere. I think it's something that you need to combat with honest, caring, talented, and experienced elected officials. And I think the responsibility of a citizen is to vote for who they think is the best person, regardless of party. And I think in the particular case in Delaware County, we elected some wonderful people that had a view of transparency, that wanted to have a new type of government for Delaware County. And I think, time will tell that the people should be the judge. People need to participate, they need to vote, but they need to make an informed vote, because without that, democracy is suspect.
John, you are a certified public accountant and an attorney.
Right.
Tell us some of the work that you do in your law firm.
So my office does primarily class action. We represent pension plans where there's a falsification of balance sheet and income statement or presentations in the marketplace. So if you buy stock at $90 based upon someone who they publish statements about their corporation that's not accurate or is improper or is intentionally misleading, and once you find out that it's misleading and the stock price goes down to $45, we sue on behalf of Taft-Hartley's, counties, governments, cities and states, and the federal government to try to recoup that money from those companies because of the illegal and improper statements that they file within the marketplace. The other thing I've been doing, which I think is great, is I'm involved with a group of doctors out of Hershey Medical who have come up with a genetic testing that tells you whether you're presupposed to opioid addiction, so that if we can move forward with these types of genetic testing, that prescriptions can then be put forward for people that have problems, but they can avoid the pitfalls, because from the prescription opioids, you then move on to heroin and a variety of other problems as far as health care is concerned.
John, your book, A New Urban Direction.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the book was written, it's like victory has many fathers, defeat is an orphan. So the book has been very successful, and I have to give credit to all the people that were my employees during the time that I was controller of Philadelphia. What we did was we took 20 years of statistics, looked at how you can combine different departments in a place like Philadelphia or even the county government, and try to make government run in a much more cost-efficient way, and try to push back and have the book really examine how government works. In other words, if you want to do X as your final outcome, how do you get to X, rather than the parochial way of having all these different departments that have grown up since the 1930s, and that the world has changed. So the book did quite well. The city made money. St. Joe's published it through St. Joe's University Press, and it's used in many of the colleges and universities even today, and I'm very proud of that, and proud of the people in the controller's office and their involvement with it.
And you teach at Drexel University in their MBA program?
I used to. I stopped teaching. I used to teach there, and I used to teach at the Fellows School of Government. I taught international cash management at Drexel in their MBA program.
John, please summarize the changes that people are going to have to deal with this new tax law in 2018.
I think when you look at the bill that was passed, it was done very quickly without really, I think, a concentration of ideas. Usually these bills take months of analytical statements and people with their give and take as to different parts of the country. I think for people of Delaware County, they're going to find that the standard deduction has gone up, but most people in Delaware County own their own homes and have children. They're not going to be able to take dependents off. They're going to be limited on the amount of state and local taxes they're going to be able to take off as a deduction. And I think in the end they're going to find they're going to have to pay more taxes. Now, what I'm hoping is that as the process moves forward, that our members of Congress are intelligent and human enough and caring enough that they're going to say, there's problems over here. Let's be adults and change some of the ways that we originally wrote that bill. They call that technical corrections. The problem today is the way the parties are acting like, this is the greatest thing that ever happened since the world began. they're not going to change anything. And I think the people of Delaware County, which are hardworking middle-class men and women and family members, are going to face the brunt of it, as maybe someone in the Midwest where there's no local taxes and real estate taxes are very low, they're going to have much better benefit of this new tax law than we will.
John, I'm going to leave it there, but I want to thank you for being a guest on Delaware County.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much. Thanks for contributing to the people of Delaware County. I appreciate it.
Hope you can be a guest again.
My honor, my pleasure.
We have been here with Jonathan Seidel, and I am your host, Larry DeMarco. If you like this video, please don't forget to forward this to all the people on your contact list and Facebook friends, and like, follow, share, and subscribe. We are signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.